Let's move on. In the top middle here, I've got Sceptile, and then right below him, I've got Hyro. They're going to be joint representing Santa Cruz. How are y'all doing?
We're doing good, Tomo. Currently, I'm on vacation, and Hyro is also, stuck in California, but not to mention that he's also participating in Arcadian this time around.
Yeah? Yeah. Hi, how
Hello.
are you doing, Hyro?
I'm doing good. I just um, started practicing a lot more for the Arcadian, so I'm like kind of excited for it.
All right, so let's start with Warren. Warren, I know you've been a longtime resident of the Santa Cruz scene. You've TO'd a lot of their tournaments. Who are some players that you think we should be looking out for from Santa Cruz in the Santa Cruz, or at the Arcadian in the Santa Cruz region?
Well, Santa Cruz has definitely changed a lot in the past year since after we got back to in-person tournaments, and we've definitely gotten a lot of really good talent. Most notable players, in my opinion, obviously we just talked about Hyro with his pretty good record on some of our PR players. Natron is another one that I would like to note. Very strong and very relatively consistent player in our region. With his playstyle, has pretty much gotten top 8 on every single time he's been to our local, even top 5 relatively. Even has wins on, I believe, Jeff Sobom, Eddie Streak, and Luisito as well. So he has quite a few wins under his belts from his career in this scene so far. Even wins over I believe, no, that's a wrong Scion. I was like, I saw Scion on here on his record, and I was like, I realized it was a different one. But yeah, he's a very strong player with his Mewtwo and his other variety of characters that he has backed up for. And he's definitely made a name for himself in the Santa Cruz region. And I believe he is a very notable.
One win you forgot to mention was he's beaten Napster like really recently at a guild house. I think he like his Pyramithra is extremely solid, as well as his Mewtwo. He's like having some bit of a character crisis, but like he's kind of trying to resolve it right now, and it's going pretty well, I think. He's just extremely strong as a player, and like he has some nerves which can get in the way, but like when he gets rid of them and like when he's prepared well for his opponent, he can do extremely well. He's beaten like almost every single person in Santa Cruz at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the number one on this list, Wesa. I see on Hyro's list. I had to bring him up, obviously.
Yeah. Wesa is definitely quite a bit of the highlighted player for our region, especially coming from Fremont, moving to Santa Cruz for school. He has a lot of tournament experience, like even from I believe the Smash 4 days as well. So I think a lot of his experience has carried over into this game really well, especially with his Robin. Especially when Santa Cruz was known for their Robins for quite a long time. Quite notably, again, with the top 5 placings within the local regions, and even recent placings at Smash the Galaxy with 4th and 5th place placings there. Pretty notable wins over, let's see, Lumi. We have Rodney Salt as well, Alsoda. Sorry, Alsoda. I know you're a fan. But he has shown a lot of prowess with his gameplay. He plays Robin very precise with very precise movement and strategy, and he definitely knows how to get out of tight spaces, even in matchups that
He beat at his most recent tourney. He beat Polka. It's really impressive. It's really hard to do against like specifically Polka because he's so consistent as a player. So I thought that was like. I don't know. Every time I fight him, I have a lot of trouble. But he won 2-0, so that's something. His just tournament experience, I think, speaks a lot for himself. It's just like the amount of tournaments he's gone to compared to a lot of other people in Santa Cruz shows how consistent he can be with his mentality while going into tournament. Even though he can have some problems with it, I think he's really strong when he needs to be, and he's able, even when he's down a game, like he doesn't stress that much about it. I think one thing that's really funny is, I'm sorry, I have to bring this up, but at Genesis he was having a pretty good run. And then he lost to Fart Jim, the O-Tour Rob from Gilbert, Arizona. And I'm sorry, it's like a running joke at this point, but I don't know. I had to bring it up. Other than that, all his losses are like extremely strong. Most of them are PR players, beating me a lot of times. So, yeah.
Two other names that I'm seeing on this list: Neopets User 17 and BDJ. I don't know either of these players at all. So
Okay.
please elaborate.
So BDJ is one of our players that he plays. He plays Kirby, but he is also very. He hasn't been going to a lot of tournaments, but he's been trying to. But whenever he can, he goes, and he's relatively consistent with at least the matchups that he does know. In terms of like the outside player experience, he's definitely a bit lacking in. But it goes to show that he's also playing a character that's not relatively common, so he mainly uses that as an advantage, especially with Kirby with the low profiling and all that. When he does show, he gets some pretty good moments in games, but he can falter a bit when he knows that he like loses his tempo. But then he just needs a mental reset and is just able to keep going with BDJ. He's definitely like a bit more notable with our casual players. But I definitely think he has what it takes to at least make it out of pools. Maybe not necessarily against some of our other Santa Cruz players that we have, but against maybe some out of region players.
I kind of disagree. I think he's extremely solid as a player. I think literally the only thing holding him back is he has a hard time practicing for tournaments. But when he does play friendlies with like our Santa Cruz players, he shits on them really, really bad. There's this one match of him versus Wayset where he 3-stocked him under a minute with taking like 20%. It was kind of ridiculous. He's just like, when he's in the mood and he's practiced, I think practice is the biggest thing for him that he kind of has a hard time doing, but he has some of the biggest awareness I've ever seen in a player. Like, he'll parry everything you do, he'll low profile whatever he needs. If he sees a Shoto startup focus, he'll immediately double down to it. Like, he has no fear, or like none of the fear that players often have when like confronted with weird situations. I think he's like extremely strong. It's kind of sad that he's seated low here, but it's understandable considering his results aren't the best. I think as long as he practices, he's literally one of the best players here. I don't know how else to like express that without, because his results don't show it, but I don't know. He's extremely strong, is all I have to say.
The other last player that you were talking about, Neopets User, he went through a number of tags, but he is a fighting game enthusiast, I will say that. So he has the right mentality as a player in almost any fighting game that he touches. Like, there was a moment in time where he went random throughout an entire tournament and got third place.
Damn.
His knowledge, his matchup knowledge, and his dexterity with his controller and the buttons that he presses is unlike a lot of other players I've ever seen. He definitely definitely plays towards his emotions, but he is definitely one that I think people need to watch out for. In terms of, like, he can throw out like a huge curveball like out of nowhere, and you will probably not be ready for it.
Okay.
I've never had the pleasure of playing him, but his character roster is massive, which like speaks to how talented he is as a player, because he can play a lot of those characters at a very good level. Warren was talking about how he went random and got third, but even more recently he went random and got second at a Monterey tournament. So he's like one of Monterey's big heroes. I think he can definitely do good at the Arcadian. It's just like an extremely solid player is the best way you can put it.
Is he going to go random with the Arcadian?
We have no idea, and that's the benefit, or that's the great thing about him, is that I think he is able to adapt to any situation that he's facing. So he's able to play whichever character that he feels like is best, and you better be having knowledge on like every single character on that roster, or you will pretty much be unprepared for this guy. So that's all I'm gonna say.
That's extremely unique. All right. Well, thank you both so much for your insight into the Santa Cruz subregion.